On today's show, part one of our conversation with attorney and political scientist Dan Denorch, who joins us to take on patents, copyright, the internet, and all other things used for good and evil. That's today on Tuesday noon for June 20th, 2006. Welcome to Tuesday noon. We're back. Another week, another Tuesday, another noon. I like seeing you people every week.
I like seeing you, too.
You're just saying that.
I know. I know. I like seeing Mary more than you, Jim.
Yeah, well, thanks. That goes without saying. Come on. When you're looking at beauty in this room, it ain't you and I. It's not coming from that.
That's right.
It's clearly
That's
on
right.
the other side. Yeah.
I am Pete Wright. Welcome to another show. Today is June 20th. 2006. And you know, I didn't say this, but 2 weeks ago, our inaugural edition was 6606.
I didn't realize that.
Did anybody go see The Omen that night?
I did
No,
not.
nobody did.
But nothing bad happened. We did good.
I think we did do pretty well.
I think it did
The
well.
world survived.
That's right.
Very cool.
So I'm sitting across the table here with Jamie Whitley.
Mr. Jamie Whitley, it's good to be here. Thank you very much.
And Mary Bradbury Jones. Great to be back.
Mary P. Good to see you.
In addition, we have our guest today, Mr. Dan Denorch, one of our very famous faculty members, and he's here to discuss a few things with us. Dan, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, I'm currently teaching the employment law course. I'm a practicing attorney. I do workers' comp, personal injury, employment law.
Do you have like a personal injury number? Are you on TV? You know, call 1. If you've ever stubbed your toe in somebody's mailbox, call 1-800.
I do.
Do you? Really?
You want it? Do some free advertising here. I also do management consulting and leadership training.
Oh, very cool.
In addition to teaching at the University of Phoenix.
You have some political experience as well, is that right?
I do. I ran for Washington County Commissioner at large in this last primary election. I didn't win. I didn't really expect to win, although I hoped to do a little better than I did.
Sure.
But it was a very interesting experience, learning how the process works.
Very cool. You going to do it again?
Yes. Except this time I'll do it the right way.
Good. Excellent.
Interesting.
Good.
Are you going to tell us what the right way is later?
Later, yeah.
All right.
It's a trade secret. You can't
It's
say
a trade secret.
So you have to listen to the whole program. It's like the teaser in the news. It says coming up,
That's right.
and then they put it at the end to make
That's
you watch
right.
it. So that's what it is.
got it.
Yeah.
How about your website, Dan?
My website is occamsrazorconsulting.com.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb. How do you spell that?
OCCAMS, Razor Consulting.
All right.
Yeah, okay. See, now I always thought it was OCKH or OKHAMS.
Yeah. That's the old English way of spelling it. That's
I'm
the way
a
it was
classy
originally.
guy.
Yeah,
I
that's
am
the way it was
classy.
originally spelled. It was
Huh?
William of
William
Occam.
William of Occam.
William Bach.
Old
Yeah.
Bill. Old Bill. What is Occam's razor?
It's a principle that's been stated in many different ways. The simplest way to say it is keep it simple, stupid.
Oh, the old KISS method. Works for me.
He simply said that the simplest, most obvious solution or answer to a problem or question is probably the correct one. So one should always start there and not go to the more complex solutions or answers until the simple one has been proven incorrect.
Well, you got my vote.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you.
It's a lot more fun to simply say keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's see. What do we have on tap for today?
Well, we've looked at an article today called About Acacia and some technology acquisition that they've been doing regarding patents. They've got, 75 patent portfolios
more
or
than
something
that.
like
You know
that?
what? While you're talking, I'll bring them up.
I mean, they've got tons and tons of patent portfolios. One of the patent portfolios is centered around digital media, the compressing, transmission, uncompressing, playing of digital media, video, audio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what they're doing, of course, is they've acquired these patents, and then they're going around and they are suing folks for using, evidently, technology that is covered by these patents. So, for example, even a podcast like this might indeed be covered, and then they will say, well, wait a second, you can't do that anymore unless you're willing to pay certain fees. So you either pay the fees or ignore them, and you risk going to jail or getting sued, or you stop altogether. And they're going around the country and suing a lot of large organizations with very deep pockets.
What I find so interesting about Acacia, and I don't hear them talked about that often, frankly, and I find that particularly interesting because I listen to a lot of podcasts. You go to acaciatechnologies.com, and this is what it says on their website. We have a proven track record of success with more than 400 licenses, including a number of multi-million-dollar settlements from some of the world's largest corporations, and have a team of experienced professional staff, including in-house patent attorneys, licensing executives, and engineers, with approximately $40 million in working capital. We're able to bring and sustain legal actions against infringers if and when necessary. So they are acquiring these patents. They're not developing many of these patents at all. They acquire these patents and then they litigate them on behalf of their client organizations.
Is this the same group that's giving BlackBerry such a hard time?
I don't think so.
I think BlackBerry was
same
actually
principle.
It's the principle, exactly.
Somebody buys up the patent and then goes and strong arms.
And then goes and strong arms them. And so the whole what I'm interested in from a political standpoint, and of course because it affects us directly, I'm interested in this whole idea of who are we protecting? I mean, what was the intent of the Patent and Trademark Office? And is it me, or is this whole thing completely kerfuffled?
That's an interesting one.
I'm going to
Can
dare
you
you
spell
all.
that one?
I'm going to dare you all to work that into
Is
this
that
show
a
again
real
as
word?
elegantly as I
Kerfuffle.
just did.
All right.
That's a very polite word.
It's all I could think of. It's just rife with emotion.
Well, in terms of who it was designed to protect, it was designed to protect people who are creative, so that people can go out and create, invent.
In our attempt to create the patent office to allow the little guy to create progress and create technology and intellectual property and those sorts of things and protect themselves. But at the same time, if we have other people gobbling those things up, then what happens is the opposite occurs. We actually are stifling that creativity, because then if you are the little guy and you create something or try something new and it steps on those boundaries, then all of a sudden you're going to get the pantsuit out of you, and it becomes, wait a second, I can't afford that, and you're going to settle or whatever. And so therefore then everything's owned by the big company, and the little guy really doesn't stand a chance. He doesn't have any opportunity. He's not going to get anywhere because the big guy says, well, here's what you're going to do, and here's how you're going to play. They define the rules. Mm-hmm. Versus this whole creative, think out of the box type of mentality. So I think the opposite actually happens.
And if, considering that we're a global marketplace now, my question is, what are the got a frog? What are the long-term ramifications to the overall success of this country if we head down this road? Because if other countries are encouraging innovation and creativity, won't there be a point where we're no longer the mega power that we are?
Are other countries, Dan, you would know this better than anybody, are other countries governed by our same patent laws? So
no.
If we patent XYZ, they don't?
They're not, unless they specifically agree to in some form of treaty or other type of an agreement.
All right.
So yeah, they don't have to abide by and aren't controlled by our copyright laws.
Okay, so we got to talk about Pirates Bay. Have you guys heard about Pirates Bay?
No.
What Pirates Bay is? Okay, you're so dating yourselves. You need to hang out with Jen Wymore. So the Pirates Bay is a website, and actually, according to the DMCA, this whole podcast might be illegal because of what I'm about to say. Pirates Bay is this website that provides a tracker service for BitTorrent. BitTorrent is a download service. It's an application you can download media files, right? And in many cases, you're downloading media files that are illegal, according to our law.
Like what? Video clips?
Movies, full movies.
Okay.
I mean, full
Songs,
movies.
digital content.
Current, second run, originally, just released on DVD. Somebody encodes them, hosts them on a private server somewhere, and posts a tracker to the Pirates Bay. So the Pirates Bay isn't actually hosting any of this copyright, violated material. It's just hosting a pointer, so that when you download that pointer, you then know where to get that file. Well, so the Pirates Bay has obviously not the U.S. Copyright agency is not really happy with the Pirates Bay. RIAA not happy with the Pirates Bay. Motion Picture Association of America not happy with the Pirates Bay. So these guys are in the Netherlands, right? So the U.S. says, we need to push these buttons. We need to get a raid on the Pirates Bay. The cops move in. They seize a whole bunch of servers, and the Pirates Bay goes down. 3 days later, Pirates Bay is back up in Sweden.
Yeah.
Right? And now they're saying the servers that were captured in this big raid, some of them weren't even the Pirates Bay.
Yeah. Right.
They were from other companies that are now suing the police that raided. Yeah. And actually, according to local law, Pirates Bay can sue the police because they are not in violation on local law.
Well, Napster, if you look back at the original downloading of pure sharing, which goes back to Napster, they were sued for a very similar thing because they weren't actually capturing the data. They were just pointing to other people's machines and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they lost very big and basically destroyed their company, and they had to reinvent themselves. But then that same model, if you're taking it outside of the United States, who has authority? And are they covered by all these patents and laws and et cetera, et cetera? And, again, it goes back to, do we stifle creativity when we're trying to regulate all these things within the United States? And are we really taking tools away from citizens and students? Take podcasting, for example, and the things that we're trying to do with that, and delivering content to people who are students who are trying to learn and become more knowledgeable, and et cetera, et cetera. Is it really in our best interest to not let ourselves do that and to take that away? This just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, Jamie, I think that you may have confused two different concepts. Now I've got your frog. First of all, the copyright and patent laws allow people to create. They create things or they create uses of things. If you're creating a use for something that already exists, you own that technique. You just can't practice your technique unless you license the right to do it on somebody else's license. So that doesn't stifle creativity. It allows people to continue to create and to protect what it is they create. What companies like Acacia are doing is they're trolling for patents. So the patent has, I want to say, a 30-year lifespan. I'd have to check that, so don't take that as gospel. But after 30 years, the patent expires. The patent holder can and has the first option to renew it. If they don't, and oftentimes they die, the patent goes into an estate somewhere, then the troller comes along and picks it up for peanuts often.
It's an estate sale.
Right.
So you get a nice couch for $3.
Right. So their idea is to keep their eye on useful patents. When the patent expires, or even before the patent expires, try and buy it from the patent owner. And then you get to license the technology. So that's what's happening with these corporations. If you go out and create something brand new, you can still patent it. It's still yours. And you still reap the benefit of it.
Well, I agree with that. We probably are mixing things up. But if you step back and look at it from a broader sense. Mm-hmm. So Amazon.com, for example, has patented this idea of one click and you can order something. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but to me that seems pretty intuitively obvious that you click once and you have the opportunity to order things, and other people have done that for a lot of years. They just came along and said, well, we're going to patent this. And, of course, they have prevented then other people from doing that unless they license from them. So it has stifled the opportunity for creativity. It's stifled the opportunity to even compete because they have something that nobody else can have based upon some kind of weird esoterical patent that's kind of iffy anyways. And how's that fair? It really doesn't allow people to compete in the same playing field.
Well, I think that's a great question. How is it fair? And it's the kind of thing that happens in a society all the time. You know, somebody starts doing something and other people want in on it. And if the pressure to get in becomes strong enough, then laws get passed that allow other people to participate. Or if the people having the power over the process or activity are strong enough, they keep legislation from being passed that allows other people in. Now, this is kind of simplistic and may even sound sort of ambivalent, but simplistically, that's really what happens. The guy with the football calls the shots, is what it boils down to.
Or the person with the most money.
Exactly. I was using football as
Right.
metaphor for money or power.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The guy with the power, or it's your football, it's your backyard. You say where the goal post is, unless the kid next door brings 4 big guys over, and then they tell you where, even though it's your football, and that's a metaphor for what happens.
Then we keep moving into an era of bigger and bigger companies and organizations than owning the right for what you and I can do, see, look at, hear, participate in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless we're willing to pay whatever they think their fee is that's fair for that. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, our rights are being taken away.
Well, it started in a big way with Reagan doing away with the Sherman Antitrust Act. And now corporations are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay, well, you got to give us some more background on that because, for those Gen Y people that go to Pirates Bay, they don't remember what the Sherman.
Well, they should Google it then and find out for themselves. I don't like to tell the students everything. I want them to figure it out for themselves.
Information utilization skills.
That's right.
Wow. Well, that just puts us in a tough spot. And I worry, again, about educators, because education is trying to take advantage of a lot of these technologies to be able to provide a richer experience for students.
Which is a perfect example of how you would get your foot in the door without having to pay. In other words, legislation gets passed that says, well, nobody else can use the technology, but educational institutions can because the state has a interest in education.
Absolutely.
And that's the way you get the foot in the door. And that's a highly probable way of creating the legislation that will allow the use that you want to have.
Mm-hmm. One even gets bigger then, right? You were telling us, Mary, earlier about ISPs and restricting content and having levels and those sorts of things. And I don't know all the details more than I do, but isn't that the same type of thing, just at a different level?
Exactly. The way I understood it was one, and I think there's multiple bills in the coffer somewhere around the internet in some way. But one of the ones that was there had to do with companies being able to pay for search engines to restrict certain sites. So, for example, if I'm a search engine small company, I could maybe go to Comcast and say, we'll pay you to only allow your Comcast people to use our search engine. We do not want them allowed to use Google. And then Comcast, if they wanted, that was a good enough deal for them, obviously, then could make the decision, okay, we block Google now for every Comcast website person. So you can take that into, we can go down the morality road, which is all of a sudden very large megachurches paying sites to not allow access to gambling, to pornography, to...
Well, and to formalize that, the way I understand it, it's more than just about the search engines. It's even what we're talking about is the companies that say they own the pipes, the Verizons, the Comcasts, those that are providing internet service, going back to Google and saying, for example, we're not making enough back in revenue to support the ongoing development of the internet, of the servers and the backbone and the fiber that goes out there. So Google, you are 90% of our traffic. We want you to pay a fee to us so that we speed you up, or essentially that you have direct access to our pipes if you want that access for your customers. Well, now Google has that opportunity, and so what we're looking at is sort of the kickback is that the companies that don't choose to pay are relegated to this backwoods server. And so the mom and pop business, while eBay may choose to pay, if you set up a storefront on eBay, you might have a very fast internet service. If you go over to our local Easy Street, local ISP, you might have a much slower connection to the net, thereby restricting your ability to do business. And so the whole discussion is that anti-competitive?
Absolutely, since we have no choice. In a lot of cases, you don't have a lot of broadband choice. Some places you do, certainly in major metropolitan areas. But if your only choice is Comcast or dial-up, which is like, are you driving a fighter jet or a broken down Yugo? So you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, I want the fighter jet. And if they're saying, well, that's good, but here are the things that we're going to say that you can and cannot do, they're restricting your freedom of choice. It's
And
totally
to get
unfair.
that fighter jet, that's going to cost you $500 a month, or you can pay your $20 a month for Easy Street and
Well,
not
yeah.
have that
Yeah.
service and not have access to things.
And that was the recent argument was that, you know what, okay, fine. We're the ISPs, and if you want a fair and equal connection, if you want to get what you're actually paying for, it's not going to cost you $50 a month. It's going to cost you $400, unless we're allowed to go through and start charging the major internet service organizations like the Googles for their bandwidth that we use. And we already don't get what we paid for. I just upgraded to Verizon's new Fios, their fiber optic system in my house, and it said it advertised 15 megabits. I mean, it's just this, it talk about fighter jet, and I get a biplane, you know? I mean, I get maybe a fourth of what that is at a regular speed. It bursts up to that fast, but I'm not in it for the bursts.
I see your point, yeah. Well, then that comes to the question of who owns the pipes? Who owns these pipes, which that the service providers essentially rent?
Well, it goes to what Dan was talking
Is
about,
it the-
too.
Is
I mean,
it the people that own them?
well, I wonder. I mean,
Or does Comcast
right
own
now,
the pipes?
Comcast and Verizon, they're all saying they own them. But you look at the Internet 2 initiative, right? It's that whole sort of internet that is separate from the internet, that is owned by the 200 educational institutions and industry and government. I say that in quotes because we don't quite know who they are. Well, that's how the Internet 1 started, was education and government, and now we're in sort of a kerfuffle.
That's twice.
Oh my
I am
goodness!
And
so
you guys
jealous.
haven't even used it once.
Well, I'm thinking.
Was that on your word of the day calendar?
You've been reading Reader's Digest again. I can't. We're going to have to bring words
We
next
are.
time
I'm coming.
because I'm
don't
not
have your
looking
game
real
on.
good.
No. I don't even remember
Well,
what we were talking about.
what you're talking about is what's always happened. You know, when people want something, somebody else tries to figure out how can I get control over it so that I can make the money or get what I want from the people who want what I have. So that's pretty simple, you know.
I think the difference here is this is a worldwide issue. And it's not controlled by any one person, and it touches the lives of billions of people. And so,
which really is the free market economy,
Absolutely,
basically.
yeah.
So, you know, there's somewhere along the line there will be an interest group or a power block with sufficient pull to make it go their way. What way that's going to end up being, nobody knows yet. Because it looks like there's all this seesawing back and forth. And there may be battles that are lost where this big company says, I get to charge whatever I want and you don't get to use the internet unless you pay me. And then some other company will come along and say, fine, you can use mine for free as long as blah, blah. And, you know, it's just going to seesaw back and forth until it's somewhere along the line
In a balanced area.
gets into an equilibrium. And the fact that the whole world is involved in the process makes it that much less predictable, I think.
Yeah, it makes it
We're all
very
interested in a free market capitalist society until something like this shakes the balance, and then we all want to be communists.
That's right.
Yeah, and look what's happening over in China right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
the government gets to control what's on there, and yet at the same time, the bloggers are undermining the government for the first time in Chinese history. Yeah. You know, there's an access. So it's, and look at how many Chinese there are, for heaven's sakes.
Right.
They could have a huge impact on how the internet goes. That is completely unpredictable from our point of view.
Well, and speaking of access discrimination, I have it on some empirical authority that if you go to certain Western hotels in China, you'll actually get access to the secret Western backbone to the internet. So now we have this sort of, if you can afford it, if you can get into the place.
It's very complicated. Even Washington State, we were talking earlier. So Washington State passed this anti-gambling law. And I don't know all the details, but you can't support gambling in any way, even to the point of not even being able to have a website that teaches somebody how to play Baccarat, for example. And there have been reports coming out of Washington State of the government actually coming in and shutting down people on their site saying, well, you taught somebody how to play blackjack, and therefore you're helping people gamble, and therefore you are a criminal. Or you review websites about gambling or whatever the case may be. And we don't want that in our state, so therefore you're in big trouble. And to me, again, that goes back to that big brother, those big corporations trying to legislate and manage what it is that you're looking at or playing with or whatever.
I don't know the background of that, though. Do you know the background of how the
law passed?
How the law
I don't
passed?
know.
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
it just stinks of, like, that sort of early prohibition, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
poker night stakes in Vancouver all of a sudden go through the roof, right?
I don't know how that came about. And even the guy who wrote about it in the Washington Post was talking that his article might even land him in trouble. I think the title of the article was something like, this article may be illegal or a crime, or even writing about it as a crime because maybe somehow you're supporting gambling in some way. And somebody comes along and says, what if you sold poker chips? Would you be covered then? What if you sold cards?
I mean, where does it stop?
Yeah.
Well, right now, while you have, poker becoming an official sport with ESPN,
Not in Washington.
showing, so can you watch it? Is it blocked in Washington?
Ooh, can you watch it in Washington? That's right.
On
You
ESPN?
can't.
Wow.
Well, that to
Gestapo
me is
comes through the door and you're watching poker on TV and they haul you away and the kids are crying, no, Daddy.
But that's actually the darker side of technology, because there's that sort of human impulse to dominate or avoid being dominated. And there are always people who are going to try and take control. Now that technology has advanced to a certain stage, it almost seems as if there's a new move to clamp down on free expression across the board. And so you've got elements in the society who have a strong opinion about some form of expression, whatever that is.
They must be
gay
Democrats.
marriage or gambling or whatever.
Clearly are Democrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking, well,
No wonder they haven't figured it out yet.
aside from that. But whatever interest group it is,
Absolutely.
now has an opportunity, because of the technology that's available, to enforce its point of view, which it didn't have before.
That's true.
point.
And so now we've got more and more efforts being made to control behavior and control thought. I'm kind of nervous about the whole thing.
So if anybody
It is a
needs to go to Dan, he'll be in the Virgin Islands.
That's right.
Got his own little place there.
No internet.
Dan will be leading the pack to Canada. We'll all be meeting
On the bus to Canada. Woo!
Well, all right, everybody. Since we haven't, it seems like we haven't actually solved this problem. I say we go ahead and put a fork in it
That sounds like
for the
a
week.
plan.
We're running up
Yeah.
on it. We've run it up to about a half hour. Nicely done.
All right.
Dan,
Good
thank
job.
you so much for joining us. I know we have scheduled to have you back next week and wrap up this conversation. So I
Thanks for
look
inviting
look forward to seeing you again. Where was that website again?
OccamsRazorConsulting.com.
Excellent. So we will keep track of Dan, and he's running again. For what are you running again?
Haven't decided yet.
I love that.
So it might not be county commissioner, something different.
Almost certainly not.
All right.
Interesting.
Very good.
And
Great.
that is
Run, Dan, run.
That is a tease.
Yes.
So we will keep up with. We'll catch up with Dan again on politics next week. Thanks,
See y'all.
everybody.
Thanks.
This has been Tuesday Noon for June 20th, 2006. To see some of the stories we've been tossing around the table, check us out at Delicious at del.icio.us/Tuesday Noon and send us email, tuesday12@gmail.com. We would love to talk all about you on the air. Join us next week, Tuesday Noon.